How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
I know, I never learned my lesson, do I? But in any case, I wasn't originally planning to make this, but I felt like I needed to. First, to clarify, I enjoy Godzilla -1, and I recommend it to anyone who is interested. I am happy that it's become as beloved as it has. I am thrilled it earned an Oscar, a first for the franchise. I am thrilled about everything regarding this. Until I realized the implications that it might have going forward. If you haven't watched my first video, I was worried -1 would just be another attempt to emulate Shin Godzilla to try and recapture what Shin did. And in that video, my biggest example of this and why I was so concerned was the Polygon trilogy, which clearly would have benefited from a Heisei or light Showa inspiration, but instead went the route of Shin Godzilla, much to the trilogy's detriment. There's a lot more issues to these movies, and I plan on getting to them eventually, but just know it was a mess, and it really dampened my hope for the future of Godzilla movies coming from Toho. And finally, we get to today, where there's now talks about potential sequels to -1, it has found a new audience, it reminded everyone why Godzilla is the most famous giant movie monster of all time, and at first, I was happy to finally see the G-Man get his due. But then I started to realize the potential implications. At first it was nothing too bad, just a couple people saying it probably put the nail in the Monster vs. coffin, and of course I laughed this off, because what these two things are trying to go for are very different. And the box office for Godzilla Kong: The New Empire basically proves it. But then I started seeing a lot more essays being made. Some of them were very, very bad. Dr. Skipper's video is probably the most infamous, and the common consensus among these is that the franchise started to suck after moving away from its roots as an allegory, and that it should go back to those original roots. To be fair, I can see where they're coming from, but at the same time, they clearly don't understand the appeal of the franchise. What makes Godzilla enticing to so many people is that it isn't afraid to delve into different genres and styles of storytelling. Some could be incredibly serious, some could be goofy, some could be a mix of both. He can appeal to kids and adults equally. Some like the cheese of the Showa films, the story writing of the Heisei era, the anthology nature of the Millennium movies. Even the 1998 movie, in recent years, has been re-evaluated and has grown a healthy fan base of its own. Even Yamazaki, the -1 director himself, liked the movie. You get my point. Godzilla is a very flexible character that can be put in just about anything, and it will usually work 80 to 90% of the time, and finding an audience that enjoys it almost every time. This versatility is what gave him a long lifespan, while similar characters have barely even tried to go as far as what Godzilla did. And sure, he's gone through many, many different tones, but the movies have always stuck to those allegorical roots, just with new subject matter. Revisionist history, science versus nature, religious fanaticism, anti-colonialism. Even Godzilla's Revenge is a commentary on the poverty system in Japan at the time. And that's just a small number of examples, both blatant and subtle. So clearly, these people don't know what they're talking about, because even the directors of both recent movies, as of this video, equally agree this is why Godzilla has remained popular. Except, it's not only these people that feel this way. Many, many others have shared a similar sentiment. Why can't Godzilla go back to being like this? The Monsterverse sucks, why can't it be more like this, etc. And now, I'm concerned that Toho will hear the reception from these people, learn all the wrong lessons from it, and just keep making more movies like -1, over and over and over and over again, leaving the rest of its legacy to essentially rot. On paper, more movies like -1 sounds awesome, until you realize just how bad of an idea that is. The more you replicate something, the less special it becomes, and I assure you, if Godzilla -1 goes on to be the sole inspiration for Godzilla movies going forward, it will get repetitive and boring very fast. And if this does happen, it severely lessens the potential horizons that Godzilla can reasonably go to. He can no longer be used in a variety of different genres or stories because the people clearly want him to be an allegory, and thus ditching a huge part of what makes him so special. And I know what you're thinking. What's the problem with that? We'll get more good movies with them focusing on the same idea, won't we? Do you want to know who else had that same idea going behind their franchise? King Kong. Despite having a 20-year head start over Godzilla, King Kong feels like nothing has ever truly been done with him until the MonsterVerse. It was just a lot of the same ideas, themes, and even the same story being rehashed over and over and over again, with very few exceptions. Even a lot of the unmade King Kong movies still follow that formula. And because of that, it caused what used to be the most famous giant movie monster of all time to fall to the wayside as others took his place. And though the consensus on this among King Kong fans is mixed, the general agreement is that the MonsterVerse was the best thing to happen for the big guy, as he's finally free from that one movie's shadow. So to bring it back around, I feel Godzilla is at real risk of becoming trapped under a similar shadow like how King Kong was. I love Godzilla, and always will, but I am worried we may enter an era that forgets what made Godzilla popular in the first place. Yes, allegory was always part of the character's roots, but that is a plural word, and that was just one of many, many roots. I'd like to give a huge shout out to Undead Sonic 89 for his courteous $30 pledge on Patreon. Through his support, both this channel and my second one can keep making bigger and better projects. Thank you tremendously for your support.